Hi guys, I'm Mark Zicree. I'm known as Mr. Sci-Fi on my other YouTube channel, and I scrupulously try to avoid talking about politics on that channel because science fiction is a big tent that includes liberals, conservatives, pretty much everyone of almost every stripe, and I want to keep it that way because I've always felt that there's room for everybody, and I still do actually. But the times are so filled with peril that I've decided to start a new channel. We'll see how often I post. And again, one thing about this channel is that it's just my opinion. And I'm walking through the night, and that's what it feels like in America right now to me. The the plot against America, based on the Philip Roth novel, has a lot of resonances. I've read the book, and I'm watching the miniseries. But let's talk about what's going on and what I think is happening and what I think it means and what I think we need. Okay, and again, this is just my opinion. Everyone has their own opinion. That's why we live in America. There's no Official Secrets Act here like in England, and we're not in dictatorships like in Russia, Turkey, China, North Korea, etc. So here we go. And let me just say, in my 60s, I've seen a lot of things in my life. I remember Lyndon Johnson. I remember Richard Nixon. I've been there for that. And I've also had friends who have lived very long lives that I knew when I was younger. My friend Ray Bradbury died in his 90s. My friend Norman Corwin died at 101. So I was able to talk with them extensively to get their views of everything from World War I on. Norman Corwin, knew the President Roosevelt and Eleanor Roosevelt and so forth. So here's what I think is happening, and here's what I think we need. I think we are in grave danger of losing our country. And this is definitely one of the most perilous times in my lifetime. This is the worst president we've ever had because he is a dictator. He is an autocrat. There's only one person he cares about, which is himself. He has no compassion, no empathy, none. And his vice president doesn't seem to have any either. So here's what's going on. This is the challenge, and this is the problem. This is what no one is talking about. It's the question of how corruption works. Because even in Nixon's day, he knew he was doing things that were illegal. He was not admitting to them. He foolishly recorded his meetings, and that's what ultimately brought him down. But he was dealing with the mafia. He was dealing with all these people. What was on those 17 minutes of erase tape must have been something spectacular, considering what he didn't erase. But let's put it this way: Trump is a dreadful person. I've often said it's not only that I don't want him in the White House, I wouldn't want him in my house. I call him the monster from the id, which is a phrase from the wonderful movie Forbidden Planet, but he truly is. He has no limits, and he'll say overtly on television that he's committing crimes. His idea is basically just do what you're going to do and then buttress yourself so that you're protected. He doesn't care if any of his followers are protected. Many of them have ended in jail, in prison, because he wants loyalty from others but does not have any loyalty himself. So, he'll throw anyone to the wolves, and has. So here's the basics. This is how corruption works and what corruption is. And this is why you have things like an emoluments clause in the Constitution and 3 branches of government that are supposed to, ideally, stop each other from excesses and balance things. And it's a wonderful design, but it has gone terribly, terribly awry. And here's, I think, what has happened and again, my view. It all started to go awry after Nixon, because the far right decided that it needed a propaganda channel so that it could change people's minds as to what was true and what was not. And so they basically got rid of the fairness doctrine. That was Reagan's regime. And I think if you checked Democratic regimes opposite Republican regimes, you would see that for the most part, healthcare, a lot of things, Social Security came in during Democratic regimes because Democrats at least sometimes care about people, and the Republicans are now in the pockets of the rich and the privileged, and that's who they serve. They did a study not long ago to find out what protest accomplishes as far as the politicians are concerned, and the answer was nothing. If they had interests that their supporters had paid them to protests would not have zero effect. If it was oil, if it was pharmaceutical, blah, blah, blah. Why are we not getting lower drug prices? Why is every other country in the world able to negotiate lower prices? Why are we paying the most for healthcare? Why are we getting shitty health service? Mexico has healthcare, universal healthcare. Did you know that? People should be running the other way. They should be running south, not north. But okay. But so here's how corruption works. So first of all, you tell people lies. It's the big lie. Joseph Goebbels came up with it. It's like you repeat a lie often enough and people believe you. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. So, okay. So then you basically they put in, they got a majority of right-wing justices on the Supreme Court. And so they threw the election to Bush, George W. Bush, even though it was clear that he had gotten fewer votes than his opponent, Al Gore, and that gave him the election. That's when things really started to go south, because think about what would have happened if Al Gore had been the president, if he'd been elected, the guy who actually got the most votes, and if there hadn't been chicanery, which essentially, in my way of thinking, is lying, cheating, stealing, is what a lot of the politicians have been doing. So, okay. And also you say that the press is the enemy of the public. The moment a president says that, you should get rid of the president, because those are the words of dictators. And my family was exterminated by Hitler. I really understand where this can go. I really, really, really do. It's personal. So, okay. So you start by corrupting every branch of government. The way you do that is you put in a justice of the Supreme Court, and then you allow infinite amount of money to bribe, because an infinite amount of money coming from the corporations allows you to essentially bribe the politicians who can't get elected unless they get huge amounts of money, millions, billions of dollars. So you allow, it's legalized bribery. So then you've got most of the politicians in the pocket of the oil companies, the pharmaceutical companies, etc. Now, it doesn't matter that the climate's being ruined, and that's entirely because we have gasoline and coal and so forth. If, we have the technology now. Sorry, guys. We have the technology now where everyone could get, an electric car. They could be given an electric car, and that would allow all of this stuff to go away. During the pandemic, we're seeing that when you don't have as much pollution, the earth starts to heal. But we're not going to have that option. So, okay. So you corrupt the Supreme Court. They allow legalized bribery, and also you allow them to decide who's the president, who gets to be president, and then you get Trump. Okay, now Trump was unusual because he said his mind, he spoke his mind, and what had been now here's the thing about political correctness. Political correctness simply means that you have empathy and compassion for people who are not like you, so that you have the sensitivity not to say things that are racist, sexist, etc. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. But of course, Trump, his message was, you can be racist, you can be sexist, it's fine. He wants America to go back to the 50s when coal was king, the steel industry was king, and white men were allowed to be racist, sexist, etc., with no ramifications, no downside. And that's the America he wants. What's good for General Motors is good for America, as Dwight Eisenhower said at one point. So, okay. So you corrupt the Supreme Court. So then Trump gets elected by gaming the system, again, just playing the Electoral College, gets in, even though he lost the ballot. And it should be one vote per person. It shouldn't be this crazy Electoral College. Should have been abolished decades ago, because what it is insane and unfair. Because, again, political corruption allows them to stack the deck, both Democrats and Republicans, with the Electoral College,